Welcome to the grammar video notes for verb tense usage. As a reminder, verbs are a part of speech, and a verb really tells you about the action that somebody is doing. When we talk about the term tense, we're talking about when in time it happens. There are also some other aspects of tense that you'll learn next year in upper grades, but right now when we think about this, we're thinking about using our verbs correctly to show when in time something is happening and who is doing the actions. All right, for this one, you're going to need some supplies. You're going to need your notebook, along with the glue and sheets given to you in class. You're going to need a pen or pencil, and you will use your crayons. To begin, go ahead and glue in your notes pages like this. If you need to pause, go for it, and then restart the video once they're glued in. All right, so to start off, we have this idea of verb tense usage. So up at the top where it says tense, will you write with me, please? Let me switch to our pen. And we're going to write when in time. And that's the big idea here. When writing, think about when your verbs are happening in time. Use the correct verb tense to keep everything in the right place in time. So if I'm writing about things that happened in the past, I want to use past tense. If I'm writing about something that happens now, I'll write in the present tense. And if it's in the future, if it's going to happen but hasn't happened yet, I use the future tense. So past, I'm going to draw an arrow going backwards. Present, arrow going down, it's right now, and then future is going forward into the future. Now we're only talking today about something called simple tense. It's the most straightforward verb tense. Later you'll learn some other tenses, but right now we're going to start with the basics. And for all of these, I'm going to use the same verb, walk. And we're going to practice writing walk in different tenses. All right, so let's start with past tense. So past tense is right here, and we're going to do the simple tense when we say something happened once. So I'm going to take that verb walk, and the strategy is I just add ed to the end. So walk becomes walked. Simple as that. Go ahead and grab your yellow crayon as well. I'm going to highlight this ed and then highlight where I have it in my verb, walked. And I can use that for all kinds of stuff. I walked, you walked, they walked, we walked, my neighbor walked. I can use walked for everybody. It's a really convenient verb. All right, moving into the present tense, that would be like if it's happening right now. There we go. So right here in present tense. Now you'll notice for this one, I have I, you, we, they as one group. There's one version if I'm using I, you, we, or they. And then there's a separate one only for he, she, or it. Remember, this could be he if I'm talking about a person. Same with she if I'm talking about a person. But I can also use it for objects and animals. So if I've only got one thing and that one thing isn't me or you. So for the word walked, if I'm going to say I walk, you walk, all of that, I walk, you walk, we walk, they walk, it stays walk. There's no change, no ending. The trick comes in if I'm doing the he, she, or it version. For that, I'm going to add the s sound to the end. And I can either do that with s or es. So I'm going to use walks, like he walks, she walks, it walks. So I'm going to highlight my S or my ES. Those are the different options that I can use. And then if I'm going into the future, if it's something somebody will do later, then I put the word will before the verb. So I will walk, you will walk. So I'm going to go ahead and write will walk. So for most verbs, if I'm writing in the past tense or the past tense or the future tense, there's really only one version and I use it for everything. So if it's in the past, I do the ed. If it's in the future, I add will in the front. With present tense, that's when I have to decide if I add an s to the word or leave it alone. So that works for really basic stuff. Let's try it verbally with the word cook. I cooked. That's in the past. I cook if it's happening now, and if it's somebody else, he cooks. And if it's happening in the future, you will cook. Now we do have in English quite a few verbs that are called irregular verbs. So go ahead and if you check out this next section, it says irregular verbs. And these are verbs that don't follow the usual pattern. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and circle ir. Remember, ir means not. So if they are irregular, they are not regular. The most important one that we have to know is the to be, because it's different in a lot of different situations, and it's a really important one. So you can see I have I, you, he, she, and it, we, and they, and they're all separated because they can be different. So for to be, if it happened in the past, we say I was. For you, we say you were. He, she, or it, that's was again. For we, it's were. And then for they, it's also were. If you're a native English speaker, you might not even have to think about these. They just happen. If you are not a native English speaker and you work in multiple languages, these might just be words you have to practice and memorize until they feel more natural. I was, you were, he was, we were, they were. Those are our past tense. Moving into the future tense, that's happening now. We say I am, you are, he, she, or it is, we are, and they are. All right, the easy one for to be is that we just add will. I will be, you will be, they will be. It's all just will be. I hope you notice that in all of these instances, we're dropping the to part. It can be tempting to think I need to sneak to in there somewhere, but we never really say that. It's just something that's put there when we're talking about the verb itself, and as you get further in school, you'll understand why. They'll be able to explain that more. All right, so these are our basic ones, but I have some tricky news. English is a language that's built out of multiple different parts and has come from a lot of other languages like we've been learning. So we have a lot of irregular verbs. When I look at the irregular verbs, this list here isn't even all of them. These are like the most common ones, but there are others that you'll find. So these are the basic ones that I wanted you to have access to, and I tried to find a pattern to share with you, and I'm a bit at a loss for a pattern. The more you practice these, the more you'll start to recognize them. Some of them you'll just know it sounds wrong if you don't use the irregular version. For example, if I say begin and I turn it into the past tense, it becomes began. It doesn't become beginned. One thing I'd like you to add is that all of these past tense verbs, all of these irregular verbs, they're all the past tense version. So we're going to write past tense. The rule that we use in the present tense, where we decide to add s or not, that still stands. And the future tense rule of using will, that still works. These only are irregular in the past tense. I also see a typo I'm going to ask you to fix for me. If you come down the line over to the word mean, this one is the word mean, like I didn't mean to offend you. If I put it in the past, I would say I never meant to offend you. Will you please fix that F and turn it into a T? That was a typo. All right, so you finished your notes and now it's time to use them. On the next page, we have the kind of activities you'll be asked to do to show this knowledge, so let's practice some together. Our first set of directions says, use the first half of the sentence to identify the verb tense. Then, fill in the blank with the missing verb in the correct tense. So first we need to identify the verb tense. We need to decide if we're in the past, present, or future. Then we're going to use that same tense for the missing verb. All right, the first sentence says, at the beach, Louisa looked for rocks and we need to use the word swim. So let's look for our verb. At the beach, Louisa looked. There's our verb. Our root word is look, and since it ends in ed, I can look over here on my chart, and ed means that this is a past tense verb. Louisa looked for rocks, so this has already happened. So I need to take this verb swim and write it like a past tense verb. So past tense of swim, ooh, that one's not on here. Have you ever heard someone say swimmed? You shouldn't have. Swim is another irregular verb. Instead, we use the word swam. If you want, you can remind yourself that one is irregular. At the beach, Louisa looked for rocks and I swam. All right, let's try the next one. We're going to look for the verb and decide the tense. In fact, I'm going to come up to where we had look, and I'm going to write past. All right, next sentence. My cousin will run track and I play volleyball. All right, let's look for our verb. Our verb is run, but be careful. What word is in front of run? It's the word will. When I look at my chart over here, I can see will gets put in front of a verb if I'm in the future. So my verb is run, and that word will puts it in the future tense. So then I need to do the same thing with the word play. To put it in the future tense, I just add will before my verb. My cousin will run track, and I will play volleyball. All right, the next one. Yesterday I went to the store, but my sister stay home. All right, let's think about the verb. Our verb is went. Yesterday I went to the store. Now, went is a tricky one. It's another irregular verb. So if I look here, I don't see an ed, but it's also not the verb itself. Here I see the word go, and the past tense of go is went. So I'm working with the verb go, and since it's an irregular one, I know it's a past tense. So here I can write my verb is go, and this is the past tense. So now I need to take the verb stay and write it in the past tense. Stay is not irregular, so I can use my past tense rule of adding ed. Yesterday I went to the store, but my sister stayed home. They're both in the past. All right, so now if you'd like, you can go ahead and pause the video, solve the next two, and then check your work, or you can work along with me. The next sentence, I am saved up money for Jordans. Ooh, there's a typo there. Can you please delete the am for me? Thank you. I saved up money for Jordans, so I extra chores. My verb is saved. It comes from the root verb save, and that ed tells me it's in the past. So now I'm going to take to do and set it in the past. First, I can check to see if do is on my list anywhere. It's not, but I know it's not dude. That's not right. This must be another irregular one that didn't make it onto our list. This is the word did. When I put the word do in the past, it becomes did. Let's write irregular. I saved up money for Jordans, so I did extra chores. All right, one more. We play flute in band, and Kara blank in the choir. My verb is play, and since there's no change to it, my verb is play, and it is set in the present. So I'm going to do the same thing with sing and set it in the present. Since Kara is one person, I'm going to use my present tense strategy of he, she, it, and say Kara sings. All right, so that's the first strategy. You'll be asked to fill in the blank by deciding what tense you're in. All right, moving on to the next section. It asks you to fix the errors in the sentences below. Ooh, I see a typo. It can be, can you cross out the N? It can be a verb tense error or an irregular verb error. All right, so here's our incorrect sentence. It says, at lunch, Carl eats pizza and I ate salad. Let's check out our verbs and decide when in time they're happening. So our first verb is eats. Carl eats pizza. Since they added an S on the end, I know that this verb is in the present. And the next verb, ate, is an irregular verb. When you have eat and you put it in the past tense, it becomes ate. So that one is past. I don't want two different verbs. So both of them are happening at lunch. Let's set them both in the present. We can say, at lunch, Carl eats pizza, and I, what's the present tense verb of eat for one person? For me, you've got it. It's going to be eat. Let's go ahead and write it correctly. At lunch, Carl eats pizza, and I eat salad. Now they're both set in the present tense. All right, let's check out the next one. We walked to the park and you ride the bus. All right, walked has that ED on the end. That tells me this is set in the past. But ride, that's happening now in the present. Let's set them both at the same time. Since our first verb is in the past, let's put them both in past tense. We walked to the park, and you, all right, let's see if we can find ride. I want to set it in the past tense. So my first strategy is thinking ED, and then I ask myself, rided. Yeah, that's not a word I know. So then I can check my list. Maybe it's on here. Nope, it's not there to help me. I wonder if I've heard it. Ride, rode. You rode the bus. All right, one final sentence. This fall, that sounds like it's going to be in the future. This fall, I will go to Oregon, and my friend goes to India. Our first verb, will go, is if you take the verb go and put it in the future. And that makes sense because they're talking about this fall. The other verb, goes, since it ends with S, this is in the present. These two verbs do not agree. We need to set them in the same time. I'm going to set them both in the future, like the first verb. Here we go. This fall, I will go to Oregon, and my friend, now I want to set go in the future, so I'm going to start it with will go to India. All right, there are your verb tense usage notes. Make sure if you need to pause and get caught up, you can. Then take your photo to submit your assignment.